Thank you for joining me in this Darebee well-being and self-care video, the series of videos which we put together that draw extensively from studies and research to give you the kind of information you need in order to make better decisions in your own well-being and self-care. I am David, your host, and today we're going to talk about the pivotal role that the brain plays in any kind of physical activity engaged in by the body. I'm going to start off by mentioning a study that just came out of the University of Essex, and I'm going to link to this in the research box, in the resource box on YouTube, so please do check it out. And that study showed that people sprinting over 20 meters, which is a very short distance, were able to increase their performance by a staggering 3% without doing weeks and weeks and weeks of hard physical work, without putting in months of exercise and strength training and so on. And the way they were able to achieve this staggering increase in their performance were by focusing on 3 words that they were given. It sounds almost like magic, but the 3 words were different for each person. Some people were told to be an aeroplane, and some were told to be a bird, and some were told to be a train. It sounds ridiculous when we say it, but there's a really good mental mechanism behind this, which I'm going to unpack for you so that you can better understand how to use it in your daily life. Now, in order to do this, I need to take us back a little bit. Now, the brain essentially is there to help us survive. In order to do this, it has a neurochemical and a neurological phenomenon called attentional focus. What that is essentially is that suppose you and I were out in the wild and we encountered a threat. Let's call that threat a tiger in this particular context. Well, the moment that our brain perceived that threat, it would then simply draw attention from everything else which we did, and it would allocate every possible resource in helping us move explosively, quickly, tirelessly in order to avoid the tiger and not be eaten. That is essentially attentional focus at work in the wild. In our everyday life, thankfully, we don't tend to meet existential threats, but at the same time, because we tend to focus a little bit too much on how we feel. We get locked inside our own body. So when it comes to exercise, we feel it as a stressor. Because we're focusing on it almost exclusively, we tend to feel that we get tired and we feel weak, we feel we can't go on, and we tend to give up, and we tend to become demotivated, and then we don't actually work out as much as we should, or we don't work out at the intensity that we should. The way around this, as the study showed, is to provide the brain with a kind of focus which will take attention away from the body and place that attention into the environment. It's not easy to do. Within Darebee, we have had for a long time now a whole lot of programs which employ and activate a role-playing game kind of environment precisely for that reason. If you want to check them out, I'm going to mention just 3. There's Hero's Journey, where every choice which you make, there's a storyline attached to this because you're the hero who is becoming transformed through a journey, and as you go through that journey you have to do specific things and you have to make choices. Every choice which you make has an impact on what happens next, but also on the kind of activities which you have to engage in. So it actually has repercussions and it forces you to make better choices. If you like a story with an anti-hero, perhaps it's a little bit more linear, but at the same time a little bit more challenging. There is Carbon and Dust, where the anti-hero has to make specific choices which lead to specific consequences, which then lead to what happens next in terms of both the storyline and physical activity. And if you want something which has a really deep moral element, which will challenge your sense of right and wrong, truly engage you in pretty much every way you can imagine, I highly recommend Age of Pandora. I'm going to link to all those in the resource box on YouTube, so check them out. But Age of Pandora in particular is challenging because it immerses you into a post-apocalyptic world where every choice you make affects those around you, which then affect you, and then affects the outcome of the story itself. As a result, you end up also doing different kind of physical activities because of the choices which you make. The, the sort of sense that we get from all this is that the moment that we allow the brain to focus on the environment around us, then it reprioritizes the amount of resources that it can put into the task itself, but also it tends to kind of deprecate the perceived effort that is involved in the physical activity, so that we can engage in that physical activity either for a longer time when endurance is required, or with a greater effort if intensity is required. This shows us that essentially, if we manage to exercise in an immersive way, and Darebee has had for a long time themed workouts that allow you to imagine yourself as a character doing specific activities, as opposed to a person in their bedroom or their living room doing some sort of physical activities which are required as part of the workout. If you are able to imagine yourself in a character, then it becomes a lot more enjoyable, but also you're able to go a little bit harder than you would normally, with a lot more enthusiasm, let's say, and that tends to trigger the adaptations we need in order to get the kind of physical outcome that we expect. I hope all this has helped you understand your own body and your own choices a little bit better. I hope it has helped you understand how attentional focus changes the way that you actually carry out a physical activity. Any questions you may have, please put them in the comments below on YouTube. Any suggestions, we're open to them all the time. I'm going to link to a lot more resources on the YouTube resource box, so do check those out. Thank you so much for staying with me. Take care. See you all next time.